my right side, Mr. Osamo from Tokyo University. On my left side, Mr. THBT from IXIA, and I am Titech from Tokyo University. And on the side of positive, we have WAD. On the side of negative, we have Titech A. And we try to debate some of the motions, and this house believes that evidence which is illegally obtained should be admissible in criminal trials. I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister to deliver a speech within 10 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, this debate about how to achieve the ultimate purpose of the justice. So we say that to be fair, to make the justice fair, we say this way is necessary. So we say the problem we can see in the status quo is very clear, the scarcity of the information. Because of the scarcity of the information, we cannot become the fair for every single defendant, of every single the organized crime, and so on and so forth. So we say that to make the justice system to be fair, to make the justice system more functionable. So we say this proposal should be achieved, should be passed. So that's why I'm very proud to propose on side of the government. So let me move on our model. So this thus means all the country, after taking this proposal, the prosecution or the lawyer can use these kind of the illegal activity to get the information. The court have to take these kinds of evidence into account, that these kind when they are giving the sentences or they are giving the verdict and so on and so forth. So that's why after taking this proposal, they are more likely to get the more information, the maximum information, and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, let me clarify the main target of this debate. The main target of this debate is the organized crime, such as the mafia, such as like the mafia which is doing the transaction of the drugs and so on and so forth, because there is the very, very intolerant, there is no transparency about the crime, what kind of structure there exists and so on and so forth. So that's why we say our side, the model is very clear. But before that, any clarification? No. Okay, let me move on our point. Well, I'm going to talk about today two things. Firstly, I'm going to talk about why this way is necessary, why we have to sometimes infringe these kind of things. The second, I'm going to talk about after the disposal, why we can make the society better, where we can make the justice system to be fair, ladies and gentlemen. So let me move on our first point about why it is necessary, why we have to tackle the problem, which is the scarcity of the information. So, Mr. Speaker, fundamentally, we say the ultimate goal, the most important goal of the purpose of the justice system is to be fair. Why is that so? Because if the justice system is not fair, the consequence is that we have to give the too heavy sentences and so on and so forth, or too light the sentences and so forth. So we say if the punishment is to be too heavy, so it is very problematic, because they have to spend a very long time, extra long time, and so on and so forth. So that's why we have to be careful as much as possible to be fair the justice system. The second, if the sentences are too light, that it is also very problematic, because these defendants, these criminals, cannot be rehabilitated well. So that's why we say that we have to be proportionate. We have to make the sentences to be proportionate, ladies and gentlemen. The problem is that in the status quo, unfortunately, there is the information, there is the scarcity of the information. So we say that because of that, we say that we have to take this proposal. So specifically, we have the three reasons why that we have to do it. The firstly, even though we arrest some defendants, the suspect, it is not enough to get the information. Why is that so? Because as I said before, main target of this debate is organized crime. So we say that because the organized crime include the many people as like stakeholders. So that's why the other people, such as like the peer or friend of the member of the other member of the organized crime are more likely to hide the evidence and so on forth. So that's why we say that in the status quo, the people, the prosecution are less likely to get the information because of because of the other member hide these kind of evidence. So that's why we say that we have to get these information by using, so for example, by using the phone tapping and so on and so forth. So secondly, we say that sometimes we say the society's benefit override the individual right. Why is that so? Because to make the society functionable, so we say the individual right can be society rights can override the individual right. Why is that so? Because at the end of the day, if we make the society stronger, as a result of that, individual can get the benefit. For example, that if we go to the military, that we can, for example, we already recognize the social rights, social benefit that stronger than the individual rights, such as the constriction, and so on and so forth. So that's why to make the society functionable, as a result of that, because the individual can get a benefit from the society, we say that the social rights should be stronger than the individual right. Thirdly and finally, unfortunately, the alternative way, such as the surveillance camera, is not working well in the status quo. So for example, even if we have the surveillance camera in the street, it cannot capture the moment in which these mafia are doing the transaction and so on and so forth. So that's why we say that as a last result of getting the information, we say that this illegal activity isn't necessary to get these kind of things. After the disposal, what will happen? So this is our second point. After the disposal, what will happen is very clear. But before that, yes.
What kind of evidence will be applied and required in the criminal court after taking disposal?
Okay, after taking disposal, what will happen is very clear. After taking disposal, because the police or prosecution can get into, step into this private activity by using the phone tapping, they can recognize what kind of structure exists. For example, some member are doing conveying the drugs and so on and so forth. So that's why they are more likely to take account. The court are more likely to take many information taken into the account. So that's why you say after taking disposal, the police, the court are more likely to be proportionate, fair to every single defendants, ladies and gentlemen, because the police, the court had the maximum amount of the information. That we say the information is the most important thing when the courts are thinking about the sentences, the degree of the sentences. So, but after taking disposal, therefore, the courts are more likely to give the proportionate punishment. It is necessary, the most important thing for the justice system. Moreover, because after taking disposal, we know the structure of these kind of things, these kind of organized crime, we are more likely to tackle the maximum problem. So that's why I'm very proud to propose on the side of government.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Now I'd like to invite the leader of opposition to come to front and give their speech within 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As criminal justice system should not allow to use illegitimate way. In this proposal, to admit to some extent that court prosecutor use illegitimate way to get information. And furthermore, this proposal completely confused the code, so we beg to oppose. Before my argument, I'd like to refute my previous speaker has said. He said, justice system should be fair. he said, but okay, we admit. That's why we shouldn't take this proposal, because this proposal, like information that gained by legitimate way, was worked as information, unfair information that damage suspects. Suspects are forced to confess to the crime even if they didn't. And in this point, I will explain it in my argument. And secondly, they said, in order to get social benefit, we can, to some extent, override illegitimate way, but it's not true. Even in that case, we must protect fundamental human dignity. That's why we don't allow prosecutors or police to torture to get information to protect social welfare, social benefit. So his argument is completely wrong. So move on to my argument. I'm going to make 2 points in this debate. First one is as code, as criminal justice system, how they should behave, and secondly, how this proposal confuse trial and how this proposal completely make court system unfair. I will show them one by one. Firstly, court should not use information that are obtained by legitimate way for 2 reasons. Firstly, criminal justice system should be the existence to protect at least fundamental human dignity. This is a fundamental principle of liberal democratic country. And secondly, power of the state is so huge. So if power of the state are abused, no one can stop it. So we should restrict overusing such power of the state. For example, we don't allow police or prosecutor to violate suspects. Firstly, because in that case, suspects violating suspects is completely against human suspects' dignity, and secondly, this is completely overused power of the state. And how this proposal applies to our principle? Firstly, this proposal completely abuses people's dignity. Using information gained by illegitimate way means that court justify this action to some extent. Court have huge influence because prosecutors' actions are based on court's decision. So what court admit have huge influence on prosecutor system or prosecutors, and in that case, court justify illegitimate way. And furthermore, in this case, government justify illegitimate way to use illegitimate way to suspects, like violating suspect, and suspect trial don't know whether suspect is really commit a crime or not, but they justify such using action that against human dignity against these suspects. So this is problematic. And secondly, this in this case is completely abusing power of the state. If government allowed to use this way to some extent, no one can stop abusing using power of the state. So this is problematic. So then move on to my next argument. I'm going to make secondly how this proposal confuses trial and such information work as unfair information to suspects. So in the status quo, courts use only information that have trustworthiness. No, thank you. First, simply because they don't use information that are gained by illegitimate way. So even if police use violation or threat to suspects to confess their crime, and then such suspects have no choice but to confess their crime even if they didn't. Court don't use this information because that information have no trustworthiness. But after taking this proposal, the information that are gained by illegitimate way are used, and this information completely make suspect as inferior, or make court decision doubtful for 2 reasons. Firstly, this information forcibly gained by police. For example, if police threat or violate to suspect to force them to confess their crime, suspects have no choice but to confess their crime, even if they didn't. That is completely unjust. this information completely don't have trustworthiness. And secondly, even if such information even if courts judge or discuss or consider such information work as unfair information for suspects, because once these evidence appear, or once suspects confess this crime have strong impact to judges. So because once suspects admit it at one time, so this proposal completely make courts unjust or unequal. How this argument is harmful to criminal justice system? This proposal completely make court doubtful information, because information that are gained by legitimate way are completely have no trustworthiness. This information cannot lead judge to correct decision. This information and furthermore, this information cause false charge, because as I told you, information gave huge influence on judges. So even if suspects didn't commit the crime, they are forced to confess their crimes, and such information have huge influence on the judge. So we beg to oppose.
Thank you, your opposition. I would like to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister to continue this debate and make a speech with his eminence to come to
Mr. Speaker, we believe the such kind of criminal trial should be prioritized is the fairness and the justice. However, Mr. Speaker, because of organized crime, they have this tendency to have very complex structure, and they have tendency not to reveal the information. What is happening is the false charge, or maybe over punishment, or not being able to charge properly. Mr. Speaker, we say this is a problem. Not only attacking, what we value is not only attacking to those crimes, but still respecting the human rights of these people. And therefore, we say being judged properly is the most important thing we should we should protect. So therefore, we are still proud to propose. What I would like to tell you today is very simple thing. Simple thing, only one thing: how the justice is not functioning under the current situation, and how this problem will be solved after taking the proposal. But before that, we rebuttal to the previous side of the speaker. So they basically, firstly, they came up and talk about how unjust this proposal is. Firstly, they told about under the criminal justice system, if we take this proposal, fundamental human dignity will be infringed. However, Mr. Speaker, what we are doing is not torturing. Mr. Speaker, even though my person has clearly told you about surveillance camera, how depicting how privacy is not absolute. Well, I would like to give you another example. A search of the house with a search warrant is a legitimate way to collect the information. So therefore, we say infringing privacy does not automatically direct to the fundamental the infringing of the fundamental human dignity. So their argument does not stand. Secondly, they told us this how it might lead to the abuse of the power. However, our Prime Minister has clearly told you that even the defender's lawyer can do the exactly same thing. So we say the equality under the court is still kept, which I will explain further in my argument. Secondly, they came up and said, it would confuse the trial. Showing the example of the threatening, the confession gained from the threatening of the police. However, Mr. Speaker, this should be something kicked out of today's debate, because it is minimized at the current situation by the videotape and the recorder. This is making. And even if it was taken in account of the evidence, when we find out contradiction or unrealistic in this kind of the confession, because we think it is skeptical, and judges and juries would kick out it from the evidence. So there's no problem. So let me move on to my argument. Let me firstly analyze how, under the current situation, the justice is not functioning. So let's see the example of when one person from the, let's say, human trafficking organization is being accused as a member of the mafia or whatever. Firstly, he is unlikely to receive the right punishment or the right testimony or whatever for two reasons. Firstly, because organized crimes has a tendency, to reveal their crime. So this is the reason why the player body is not functioning, because there exists a power structure within that organization. They know when they tell the truth, when they get out of jail, they will be assassinated by the boss or whatever. So this is the reason why they tend to lack in the information. And secondly, because organization crime itself has a tendency to be very complex. Why is that? Because there is a connection with the overseas and connection with a certain kind of other company, etc. So therefore, it is hard to obtain the information unless we take this proposal. So under the current situation, forced trials might be doing and over punishment may be done. Even that mafia member did not commit the crime or did not kill anyone else. So we do not call it justice or fairness. We say presumption on innocence is not achieved because there is more likely to be bias for those kind of members of the mafia, and we say equality under the law is being totally infringed. So what is happening after taking a proposal? Firstly, let's see what kind of information we will be able to obtain. So maybe under the current situation, hacking maybe is like one thing easy to understand. So think of the example of the WikiLeaks. When they reveal the information, when this one American company was actually having a connection with Mexico's mafia, we could not know this information without this mean hacking. So because the organization crimes such as human trafficking or the bribery has a tendency to shut out their mouth, as we have told you, this specific information would not have been obtained even if we did not take the proposal. And there are two scenarios after we obtain this information. Firstly, if this is not such a if this was such a tribal information, it would be kicked out from the trial eventually. But still, it might be taken account. Secondly, if it was a very important and significant information, which might be directly connected to the punishment of the punish on that, we think it is the good thing because which means we will be able to give the proper punishment to those people. But before that, yes, any point? Okay, so not only being able to judge fairly, because the amount of the information itself would increase, and the quality of information which wouldn't have been obtained unless we take that mean, which means that information itself has a tendency to be more important, more tendency to be more hidden because it is important. But not only that, because we admit the defendant's lawyer, the same thing, the equality under the law will be kept. So we can continue on the criminal source in a more justice way without avoiding such kind of bias running crazy. And moreover, we say we will be able to deter false charge and punishment. Why is that? Because even though they try on, let's say hacking, when no information comes out, they see this person is not related to that particular crime. So therefore, we say that kind of false chargement happening to that certain member of the mafia will be avoided. And moreover, we say actually it will be the deterrence for the organized crime itself. So after taking a proposal, they will have this kind of feeling, okay, at any time, there might be some certain kind of possibility our personal computer might be hacked, or our information might be harmed by the prosecutor or whatever. So we say, actually, this would be able to attack to the organization crime in a very effective way because they will actually stop to do some kind of hidden activity or hidden illegal activity. So actually we say this is one of the most effective way to weaken the organized crime. Why is that? Because we are not sacrificing anything. And secondly, we say because we do not see any harm from that style house, we say it is okay. And moreover, if we take this account of the information and if it is such a tribal, we can still go open with it. So Mr. Speaker, therefore what I have told you is how this proposal is functioning. So therefore we still take over this debate. Thank you.
Thank you. The Prime Minister driving forward to the opposition, please come to the front and to give a speech with 10 minutes.
アフト関税がもしくは審査で一般使えるヒューマンライトの問題であるとか、であるですが、アンダーバランス、アンダーバランス言えないか。
Some rebuttal to the previous speakers. Firstly, she mentioned that today such infringing such privacy or such activity is not a problem. Like also on the status quo, such harm like the infringing human right is not problem. Two response to the previous one. Firstly, even if the infringing such privacy is extremely harmful to the citizen, because citizens make their life basic in the family or their privacy, their private room, and they have the thing they don't want to be revealed, like My Treasure magazine and so, and such things not to be detected, and but they have, and we will for quickly and automatically intrude the house and surrounding is for citizens. They are done such thing for some citizens extremely harmful for them. And second rebuttal, moreover, as my partner clearly told you, like such include illegal activity include like the using the violence, like torture, and such activity even after promotion in legitimate way. But we believe such extremely give up pain, and such activity shouldn't is extremely harmful, like not to be feel pain. Citizens have such right, but such right are infringed. Such activity shouldn't be allowed. Second, as previous speaker mentioned that such as my partner told you, and the status quo such unrealistic such information including in such such trial after plan adoption. The previous speaker mentioned that but we have a discussion and we can get only is a good or the beneficial or the true information, but not true or it's extremely difficult because only if we have in the court is document and only see is a document what is a credible the information or not credible is extremely difficult for us. And moreover, as my partner told you, such such illegitimate way is such credibility is extremely low, and we believe in trial rather confusing. This is extremely harmful. Third rebuttal. Previous speaker mentioned that such information and the status quo lack, but this is not problem we believe. To rebuttal, to response. Firstly, even on the status quo, okay, lack of the information, no, some such police have incentive to find this information as much as possible, like because if the police or such people can prosecute and they fail, they are extremely punished, and we believe such a police have extremely big incentive to spend find the information. And moreover, secondary, as my partner clearly told you, such a prayer bargaining exists, and the previous speaker mentioned that such the prayer bargaining is not workable because they have a possibility to be assassinated, so they don't say it's not true because such as who conduct the prayer bargaining is in prison, so prison is a very safe place because other actors don't intervene such places, so we believe prayer bargaining they can say. And moreover, if such the boss is extremely bad people, such boss get very long term imprisonment, and so such people if they go out, but such boss are in the prison and they have no possibility to be killed. Okay.
Please show us one way to solve this organized crime, which our American states and whatever are failing to do so.
Okay, using bargaining and getting the information. Okay, such the American try to use bargaining to, how to find. This is the only way. This way is extremely workable. No. Okay, moving on to our issue. Firstly, such why illegitimate way should be allowed by the government or country. Okay, please imagine if such as a contamination in the area or the developing country, or if you do adultery, but you are not be punished because the laws don't say you are illegal and so. We believe to such if the such law don't say it is illegitimate or it's illegal, we shouldn't punish because the law is the consent of the citizens' voice. It's what citizens think and they vote and they make a law. So we believe at firstly such democratic country should respect at firstly citizens' voice. Citizens think this is illegal or not, and we believe so. As a consequence, we can say if this the way is illegitimately yet such activity shouldn't be allowed or illegitimate way shouldn't be used in the trial. A trial should based on the should based on the law, should based on the citizens' voice. Moving on to the second issue, after production, such influencing the human rights would increase. Sorry, the trial we believe status quo of such the illegitimate way is not so big because such because even if the police get information, but such as a trial say stop, your evidence is not legitimate, so this proof doesn't be used. So as a consequence, so we believe after production, such rather government incentivize police to infringe, like the influence in private or using the violence or using the torture. For we believe such action after production more conducted because of the government allowed. This is extremely problematic from two reasons. Firstly, is such as my partner clearly told you, even if they have a possibility, they commit crime, but at first it's too. And they have right also to be free from pain or not to be intervened in the human right. And secondly, moreover, after production, the police tend to use more and more. So such innocent citizens also have possibility to be use violence or they violated their human right. This is extremely pernicious from two reasons. Okay, from two reasons we are very proud to oppose.
Thank you. Now I'd like to welcome Chief to make a speech in German.
Mr. Speaker, this debate is about justice. So I want to ask you one key question on this debate. Why does justification exist in the society in the first place? For human life, Mr. Speaker. And what is justice in the context of this debate, Mr. Speaker? Punishment based on truth, Mr. Speaker. Precisely because justice in the criminal trial means giving more proper punishment, Mr. Speaker. That is to achieve ultimate goal of justification, to achieve ultimate goal of justice in the criminal trial, Mr. Speaker. We should take this proposal. They never ever provided us credible solution of the problem in the status quo. They mentioned the alternative way, like the example of prayer bargaining works. But Mr. Speaker, I want to ask you, why even if their logic is true, even alternative works, Mr. Speaker, why does increase in information so wrong in the first place? Never ever doubted by the side of the That is why, Mr. Speaker, even if their entire logic is true, for justice, Mr. Speaker, we should take this proposal. Two things to ask you as a criteria of this debate. Firstly, is it necessary for criminal trial to utilize information which is illegally obtained? Secondly, I'm going to talk about what's the impact of illegally obtained information on criminal trials and society as a whole. So moving on to the first question about is it necessary for criminal trial to utilize information which is illegally obtained? The contention coming from the negative is quite simple. No, precisely because for justice. But Mr. Speaker, I have several responses. Firstly, this is not true. As my partner clearly told you, there are many criminal trials where information is not enough, like the example punishing the people who belong to mafias and so forth. Where is the legitimacy for the side of negative to give wrong punishment to the suspect, Mr. Speaker? To give wrong punishment is injustice, Mr. Speaker. Never ever doubted by the side of the Second response we have, even if the right of silence of the suspect is going to be infringed, Mr. Speaker, what's so wrong with this kind of infringement of the right of silence, Mr. Speaker? Let's make comparison. It is much better in the paradigm of affirmative in comparison with the paradigm of negative. Why is that? Precisely because, Mr. Speaker, the ultimate goal of the protection of the right of silence is to give proper punishment, Mr. Speaker. And then, let's reimagine the situation after this proposal. There is more information in addition to this specific information. Therefore, there are many counter information in addition to this specific information. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we don't see no problem after this proposal. Moreover, we see the consensus on this debate is that the court is capable of giving proper punishment precisely because there is a certain kind of justice, and if the court is incapable in the status quo, if the court is so incapable, there is no justice even in the status quo. That is why, Mr. Speaker, the consensus on this debate in the first place should be the court is capable, Mr. Speaker. That is why, Mr. Speaker, because of this simple logic, because of the consensus on this debate, we can achieve today's justice, Mr. Speaker. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we should take this proposal. Thirdly, the second contention coming from the other side is the House. Is a prayer bargaining does work. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to point out the inconsistency of justice coming from the negative. On one hand, they said that the suspect right is absolutely evil, the justice is absolutely evil. But, Mr. Speaker, in the case of prayer bargaining, we see victims' compensation is going to be undermined. This is also injustice. That's why, Mr. Speaker, there is a certain kind of concession from the negative. The certain kind of injustice is right for true justice, Mr. Speaker. That is why, Mr. Speaker, in the first place, there is crucially contradiction about the stance about the justice. And secondly, there are some, of course, some cases does work without injustices. However, Mr. Speaker, in fact, there are some cases where the information does not work, even if we take prayer bargain. That is why in this specific criminal trial, we should take this proposal, never ever answered by the server. Thirdly, they mentioned this is going to be against the citizens' will, precisely because law reflects the voice of citizens. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask you, why does citizens reflect their voices on law in the first place? For justice, for social order, for true criminal trial, Mr. Speaker. That is why, Mr. Speaker, to ensure the consequence, to ensure the ultimate goal of the voices of citizens, we should take this model. Precisely because in the current legal framework, in the lawful framework, there is no justice, precisely because the criminal trial code is not injustice. Precisely because of lack of information, the code cannot judge what is wrong, what is best, precisely because of the lack of information. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, to achieve the ultimate goal of the voice of citizens, Mr. Speaker, we should take this proposal. That is why we don't see no problematic in this criteria. That is why there is no contention coming from the other side of the House to legitimate their stance entirely at all. That is why we should take this proposal in the first way in terms of necessity. And second, let's move on to the second issue about what's the impact of illegally obtained information on criminal trial. And firstly, they mentioned fundamental human dignity is going to be infringed. But, Mr. Speaker, the suspect should have the fundamental right to be judged as accurate as possible in the first place. In the status quo, these fundamental rights of the suspect are continuously infringed because of the lack of information. How can you tackle the problem? Never ever answered by the cypher. At least under our framework, we can achieve both goals precisely because of the morality of prosecutors and so forth. We can minimize the infringement of such kind of innocent citizens. Moreover, we can achieve the ultimate goal of justice for the suspect. That is why the paradigm of affirmative is better than the paradigm of negative, precisely because under their paradigm, the suspect of the right of the suspect is continuously infringed, Mr. Speaker. That is why, Mr. Speaker, the first contention cannot be the reason to legitimate their stance entirely at all. Secondly, they mention about the power imbalance between prosecutors and the lawyers, and this leads to abuses of power. But, Mr. Speaker, this is not true, precisely because on court criminal trial, both sides have clear incentive to maximize information, to maximize the amount of information. Mr. Speaker. That is why, Mr. Speaker, lawyers also have the clear incentive to use this way, Mr. Speaker. That way we don't see no power imbalance in the first place. So after the proposal, for example, Police X is going to be involved with human trafficking and then get information from the boss of the group with trust. Precisely because after the proposal, because he or she is involved with illegal thing, he or she can get this specific information from boss. And then this leads to the reflection on court trial, and then the criminal are more likely to be given proper punishment for social justice for himself, Mr. Speaker. This is a unique benefit of taking this model, never ever doubted by the before. That is why, Mr. Speaker, at the end of this debate, Mr. Speaker, we strongly believe justice triumphs in the end. That is why, Mr. Speaker, the proposition should win in this debate. That is why I am very proud to propose.
Thank you, Government B. Now, I'd like to welcome the Petition B. Please make your remarks within 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We think that the court should continuously respect the legislative procedure. We think that this proposal allows the countries to exploit and imprint their own citizens in the name of public security. We think that this policy is extremely harmful for their own citizens, so we beg to oppose. In my speech, I'd like to explain 3 issues. First of all, in the principle level, why the legitimate process override some kind of public security or few information and so on. Second of all, I'd like to explain in the practical level the necessity of this proposal in terms of few information. Third of all, I'd like to explain that after taking this proposal can minimize the harm of mafia and so on. Let me explain one by one. Moving on to the first issue. In this debate, firstly, the Prime Minister has to give 3 reasons to support that this illegal action. First of all, as I said, the information is few. We think that it's to some extent, if to some extent we recognize that, but we think that they didn't prove the burden of proof. Why the other way? Why the police are allowed these illegal way, and not finding other effective way to prosecute and to arrest the mafia and so on. They say they didn't prove this kind of thing. Second of all, we think that they say society's benefit sometimes the override the individual benefit and so on. They give the analysis from the conscription and so on. We think it's not upright. In the case of conscription, not only a few democratic countries introduced. We think that this proposal are introduced in all LDC. So we think that the analogy is not upright. We think that also this actor is the court. The court, this motion is the court should recognize or not. So we think that their analogy is not upright. Also, we think that the legislative process should be respected in terms of sacrificing the public benefit. As my partner told you, the example of contaminated thing, the country that don't recognize country that don't recognize the prior. Country that already recognize the priority of legislative process, even if these actions are some kind of contaminated products, which the law have yet designate these contaminated products is illegal. Even if this kind of some contaminated products cause harm of citizens, but the court shouldn't punish because this is illegal. This is not designated by law, Mr. Speaker. Because ultimately because this is if the states recognize this kind of thing, that this the cause that something abusing their own citizens by the states. We think that the citizen is the extremely weaker position in compared with the nations who are called some kind of administrative actors. So we think that ultimately we think that this kind of action should be restricted as much as possible. So we think that in these 2 points that their criterion is not important. Also, third of all, they said that in this kind of situation, the fair information is informant. No, thank you. We think that to some extent that it's important. The courts that sometimes respect the fair information between defendant and the prosecutor. But we think that the we think that in terms of the prosecutor, the court have not yet recognized the fair information from prosecutor. Mr. Speaker, please remember the example of the principle of presuming innocent. Mr. Speaker, in some cases, the defendant are inferior position in terms of few information to prove their innocent. To prove the innocent. But we think that the courts don't lay emphasis on this kind of situation because the fair information is not important. We think that this kind of the importance of this kind of information is the only in the police or some administrative actor. So we think that the courts itself don't recognize the importance of this kind of information. Okay.
Is it okay to give wrong punishment based on lack of information, even though giving right punishment is the basis of social order for the vast majority of people? Yes or no?
This thing the police should the action the police should do. So the court is irrelevant. Moving on to the next issue, we think that in the current situation, we have the huge necessity to take this proposal in terms of huge information. My partner has told you in the current situation that the pre-bargaining or undercover investigation is workable because someone in the mafia have the incentive to receive right punishment compared with their boss and so on. So we think that they will be fearful by assassinated by their boss. Also, the Junjun has said between America and Mexico, there are few information about the mafia and so on. We think it's not important. American government have already investigated cooperating with the Mexican government and so on. So we think that it's not important. Also, they said the suspects are continuously injured under our paradigm. We think it's not. We think that to some extent it's true, but we think that the problem is that this kind of investigation cause harm around the suspect in terms of privacy and so on. So we beg to oppose.
Thank you. Can I drive you along the next speaker counter points and to summarize this debate with the main points.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In this debate, court allowed to use illegitimate way against suspects who courts don't know that they really commit a crime or not. So this is problematic. And okay, I'd like to show 2 crash points to sum up this debate. First one is, as criminal justice system, government should admit use information that are gained by legitimate way or not. And second crash point is about whether the status quo after taking this proposal, which can achieve justice. So I will show them one by one. Firstly, government side said courts should admit use information that are gained by legitimate way, because using that way can make society safe. But we clearly told you, even if this way can make society better or society safe, we should not allow this action, or we should not, the illegitimate way is not acceptable. I clearly showed you 2 reasons. Firstly, human dignity cannot violate to make society better. For example, even if police arrest members of terrorists who kill a lot of people, the real democratic country completely ban police from torturing them, even if that torturing them can make society better. Because the real democratic country believes that even terrorists have fundamental human dignity. So, but in this debate, we clearly against human dignity. And secondly, in this debate, targeted suspect, as I told you in my argument, we clearly told you, suspect is not criminal. We don't know these suspects really commit a crime or not. Suspects are not judged by court, so suspect may be innocent, and they fail to prove that. While government can legitimately use illegitimate way against suspects who have possibility of innocent. In that case, illegitimate way is not illegitimate way is unacceptable. But we clearly told you, taking this proposal means that government deny importance of fundamental human dignity, and furthermore, this proposal completely make the trial unfair. This is second crash point. And secondly, government side said we can achieve justice through taking this proposal simply because the amount of information will increase. But we clearly doubt these points. Firstly, information that are gained by illegal way have no trustworthiness. Whether information are correct or not is completely doubtful. So, for example, in some instances, police or threat or violate suspect to confess their crime. In that case, suspects have no choice but to confess the crime, even if they didn't. So in that case, these information are completely doubtful and wrongful. So, and secondly, even if these courts discuss or consider whether this information are correct or not, even in that case, this information work as unfair information to suspect, because as I told you, that fact that suspect admit their crime one time have huge influence on judges. And thirdly, as I told you, power of the state is so strong, so we cannot stop using this power. So that information have no transparency because there are no checks. Without courts, we cannot check these points. So, so shortage of information cannot become the reason why we violate these principles of debate. So we aspire to them. Thank you.
Thank you. With our opposition, I'd like to welcome the Prime Minister to summarize this debate in 4 minutes. Thank you.
Crucial failure from the opposition. They only talk about how sorry they would feel towards the defendant after taking the proposal for serving severer punishment than under the current situation. However, Mr. Speaker, they continuously ignore the possibility of, after taking the proposal, of lightening the punishment of those members of the organized criminal, even though all members of the proposition had continuously mentioned. So this actually proves how narrow view they have and how narrow view that the current judges and jurists have. So they are not taking into this concern or the possibility of innocence because they are having the bias towards the member of the organized crimes, and therefore, with the lack of the information, they are not judged fairly. We say this is not true. This is not fair. For this, we say more information would be the solution to solve this problem and to achieve the truth. So, in order to protect the presumption of the innocent and equality under the law, we are still very proud to propose. So, let's see today's debate in 3 criteria: the necessity of today's proposal, the effectivity of today's proposal, and thirdly, the fairness of today's proposal. So let's start one by one. Let's see first the necessity of today's proposal. Though that has admitted the problem, they never showed any eligible solution. Oh yeah, except for the player bargaining. Well, actually, the player bargaining itself is a gray zone, as my speaker has clearly told you. And even though we told the player bargaining is has a tendency not to work for the organized crime, they continuously ignore that. So, on contrary, we clearly told you the lack of the information is being the serious problem, forcing the lighter or too strong punishment to those criminals, which we say not fair and not able to solve the fundamental problem itself. So, we say now it is a time to introduce this proposal by maximizing the information, because we say we can judge fairer. So in this criteria, we clearly took over this debate. So let's move on to the second criteria, the effectivity. Well, that side has said, it would confuse the trial because such kind of example, confessions owned by the threatening would actually not be true. However, Mr. Speaker, we clearly refuted on this point, saying that if it was so unrealistic and full of contradictory information, it will be eventually kicked out of the information. What we said we should prioritize is the amount of the information, which we would be able to see the problem from the more perspective, being able to lead to the truth, which they never engaged. And we never heard how to achieve the fairness from that side of the house, and how current situation or the false charge can be solved. So in this criteria, they lose. On contrary, we clearly told you, amount of the information would be actually good, and the excess information, which has been concealed by the organization, therefore has a tendency to be the more valuable information, would be very helpful. So judges and juries can take this into the consideration, and such kind of charges based on the bias would be kicked out. Again, no engagement from that side of the house, so we clearly took over this criteria once again. So let's see the last criteria, the fairness of today's proposal. But they continue to say, it is infringement of the privacy. But what? We said infringing the privacy is actually okay, or the infringing the individual right is not okay, because we say it is not absolute. In order to achieve the social justice, we force in some countries force conscription, even though some citizens don't want to go. We set the surveillance camera, even though we acknowledge the possibility of infringing the society, infringing the privacy. So we say this is totally okay, which they failed to answer. So moreover, they said this would be the abuse of the state. However, Mr. Speaker, we clearly told you, because we let both the defendant and the prosecutor to take this proposal, it is totally fine. And actually not the abuse, but cooperation will be achieved. On contrary, we told you we can achieve social justice and individual justice both. For the social justice, we said the fairness of the citizen will be protected, and moreover, we will be able to deter the organization crime, which is an effective attack. And moreover, on contrary, we told you for individual justice, because there will be they will be just based on the truth, it will be probably better. So on this criteria, we clearly won, and we took over today's debate. Thank you.